Друзья, всем привет! С вами я, София Скай, наша программа Actors Talk. Сегодня у меня в гостях ожидается известная актриса Голливуда Nazneen Contractor. Nazneen – действующая актриса кино и снялась более чем в 45 картинах, в фильмах и сериалах. Сегодня будет очень интересный разговор, он будет проходить на английском языке. Друзья, напоминаю, что те, кто не понимает английский язык, смогут посмотреть наш эфир. Через какое-то время он будет переведен, выложен у нас в IGTV и на YouTube-канале. А я перехожу на английский язык и желаю вам удачного просмотра. Nazneen is coming. Yay!
Yay! Yay! Oh my God, that was so embarrassing. Hi.
Yeah, no, that's great. I saw you're doing well. I was showing, like, look at her. She's doing her own life so great. So I'm so happy to see you, and thank you for finding time for this live. And let's talk about where are you at right now? And are you in Los Angeles or in Canada?
So I normally live in Los Angeles. You're absolutely right. But currently I'm in Toronto, Canada. And I don't know if it's as cold as Moscow, but it's about minus 12 degrees centigrade here. It's pretty cold.
Yes, it is 12 o'clock your time and it is 8 p.m. our time.
Yes.
So let's speak a little bit, Nazneen. You know, it's been a while since I talked to somebody from Hollywood, and I'm really interested in what is the situation right now at the moment, because when I talked to Brad Ratner, it was a completely shut down. He was on quarantine, he didn't go out, and the work was stopped. How is it right now?
So right now, there's nothing actually shooting in Los Angeles just because C.S.I, our union, has put a moratorium on productions just in LA. In the United States, however, there is stuff shooting. And they shoot, SAG has made a series of rules of how you have to shoot with actors. So you have to wear masks, you have to be tested 3 times a week. So there are productions going on. Most of them are either smaller scaled films with fewer people or television shows that are already existing and running. But it is happening. It's just happening a little slower than normal and definitely with more caution.
Yes, and I know that there is a huge difference between what it was before and what it is right now. And how do you guys book jobs? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that now there's a self-taping situation, that it's very easy for somebody who is far away, and you can just do your self-tape and send it. Is it easier or is it hard? What do you think about that? What is it for you?
You know, I think that that's a very good question, because auditioning has changed. It's literally become a self-tape, which frees you because you can be in any location and do it. Or it's become a Zoom audition, which also says you can be in any location and do it. That's the good thing. And the other plus is you can control the lighting. You know, when you're doing a self-tape, you can do as many takes as you need. You can maybe even send more than one take of doing it a little bit this way, a little bit that way. So you have more creative control over your work, which is wonderful. But the flip side of that is, because you're doing it with a colleague or by yourself, you don't have any of the feedback that you would normally have in an in-person audition, or immediate feedback. You know, someone has to watch your tape and then give you feedback, as opposed to just watching you do it and telling you to do it differently. So I feel like it's a plus and negative, but we have to adapt. We have no choice. So you just really up your game. You try to make very strong choices in your auditions. You try to ask your manager or agent for some notes from the casting director maybe before you do it, to see which way they're leaning or which way they want, or how they perceive the character, and then you kind of put yourself out there and just do it.
Well, in terms of emotions, it feels like it's easier in terms of emotions, because when you get to the door, it's always like an exam. You know, you're getting nervous and blah blah, and here you really can do whatever. But yes, there is no feedback. I want to really talk to you about the very beginning of your career. about how did you get into such a working tempo that you're really booking and working. But at the very beginning, you was born in India, then you moved
That's
to
right.
another place, then to another place. When did you realize that you want to be an actress, and in where did you start your studies? That's very interesting.
I do want to talk about that. I want to go back to something that you said, though, about the audition, the in-person audition, and that nervousness that you get.
Mhm.
I actually think that's a good thing. I think that adrenaline rush and that pressure actually, sometimes it can hinder you, but I think for the most part, it pushes you. And I do miss that. I have to say, I really do miss that. Now, back to how it all started. Yeah, I was born in India, and I grew up in Africa, in Nigeria, and London, and then Toronto, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 2008. Um, and my
How
husband
old
is
were
all.
you at this time?
So when I moved to Los
So,
Angeles, I was 24. So I had already
and
had
before then, you didn't do acting, right?
no. Did. So I was fortunate enough. I actually started my career in Canada. I came to Canada when I was 8 years old, and I started out dancing, like you, not as well as you, but I studied ballet, and I loved performing. That was my thing, and I loved the discipline that dance taught me, and I loved the competitiveness in it. I loved all of that, but what I really loved was performing. And dance allowed me to use my body, my soul, my eyes, but not my voice. So I always wanted to be an actor. It was inevitable. I just happened to be really good at dance. And so, my parents put me in that and encouraged me to do it. But when I was in high school, I went to a very famous performing arts high school here in Toronto.
Mhm.
And you have to audition to get into the school, and you can study dance, visual arts, music theater, instrumental music, or drama. I think now they've
Mhm.
expanded the program where you can also do film and something else. But so when I went there, those were the things. So I auditioned for both drama and dance, and I got in for dance in my first year because I wasn't, even though I wanted to do it, I wasn't very good. And I joined like drama classes on the side, and I sort of like begged the drama teacher to let me in, and so he let me switch majors in grade 10. And then when I got into the drama group, it was a very intense education. Like we studied, by the time I got to university, I had already read like all of Stanislavski's books. We did tons of Chekhov
Mhm.
plays. It was like a very, very, very comprehensive um, study in theater, along with all of our other subjects. We also had to like write, produce, and direct plays. It was a very intense program. But in that program, I would see my colleagues, my fellow students, and many of them had agents and were getting work. And I always was very
Mhm.
precocious as a child. I was like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And I looked at some of them, and I'm like, you get jobs, like you get paid. I should do this. Like I can do it. So what did I do? I had my friend who was studying photography at the school take some photographs of me at the school. I had them printed out. I put together a resume, a CV of all the productions I'd done at school because I'd never worked in my life. And
Yes.
I found a book with all the agents in Canada, and I made like
Uh-huh.
35 envelopes, and I sent them to every single one of them, just in the post, just in the mail. I was like 17 years old and still in school. I had a job. I used to work at a clothing shop, and I wanted to do this. And then I called every single one of them, and all of them said no. They're not looking for someone. They're not looking for someone new. At that time, there were very few Indian actors that you saw on television, and even in Canada, like there weren't a lot.
Mhm.
And so then this one guy, I wish I could remember his name, but he said, why don't you call this person? They just joined as an assistant to someone else, and they're looking to start their own roster. Call her. So I was like, what have I got to lose? So I called her. I sent her my stuff. She met me. And, because she was brand new at it too, she was like, yeah, I'll take you on. And I first started going out for commercial auditions. And I started, booking a few commercials here and there. And, getting a little bit of experience of auditioning and being on camera, but I hadn't really done it. You know, I hadn't really.
Right. So in your university where you studied there, it was more with theatrical.
Theatrical.
All theatrical. So you didn't study how to do audition. You didn't know how you look on camera. None of that. So you figured it out like.
Until I was like 23 years old. I didn't even know. You know.
Right.
I didn't. Yeah, and it was like a lot of like, you know, perseverance and a lot of like I was a really cocky kid. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna tell you that I'm the best thing you've ever seen. I kind of had that attitude, right? Very young and arrogant. And then a really big break. So then I got like my first big guest star on a television show, sci-fi show, and I sort of did that. Then I booked another one after that.
So tell me more specific about your very first experience. Okay. How was it emotionally for you? Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I ever did was on a sci-fi show called Star Hunter. It's shot in New Brunswick, which is a maritime province in Canada. And I was not even 18, so I was technically supposed to go with a guardian, but my mother couldn't come with me, my father couldn't come with me, so they gave me a guardian when I was there, who was just this girl who like totally wanted to have a great time and party. So I went away, and I was pretty much on my own. And I didn't know that you had to like hit a mark on set. I didn't know that they put a line down for where you're supposed to land and say your line, where the lights are set up and everything. I didn't know that. So I had to learn everything on that first job. So I remember the first time I did something on camera, the first take, I literally had to walk up and say no, or say something like one word. And they had to do it like 15 times because no one told me this is what you're supposed to do. So the director, who was French, he very quickly knew that he knew it was my first time, and so he was really nice, and he started to like after that first day he kind of lost his temper with me, and then I think someone talked to him, and then he was very nice, and he really guided me on what I was supposed to do. He's like, okay, this is your mark, so time how long it's going to take there to say your line in the right amount of time, and you need to do it perfectly. And so then as soon as I learned that, being a dancer, I was like, okay, I can do this. I know. So then you learn the little tricks. Okay, well, I'm going to count how many steps backwards it takes. I'm going to say my line walking backwards from the mark to know where I should start, right? So, okay, I have to start here because it takes me this amount of time to say my line and get to this mark. So, you know, I very quickly learned these tricks. And that's the thing, like, I think in order to succeed in this business, and really in any business, but particularly in this one, is you have to be quick on your feet. You have to, like, you have to be a fast study. You really do. And so I ended up having a great time on that show. Weirdly, it was a Canadian show, but they had a bunch of European money in it. So a lot of the guest stars were from London. The director was from France. So after work and on the weekends, we rented a boat and we would have dinners and we would do this. And, you know, it was very European. They loved to enjoy their lives. So it was actually a wonderful first introduction to film and television because I learned a lot technically. I met some fantastic people, and I was like 17 years old without any parents. I was having a great on the weekends. And then job, more demanding. The next job I booked was called Relic Hunter, where I actually met my husband. I met him on this job. Yes, and then we didn't meet again until 6 years, but the first time I met him was on this job. He's also an actor. And that was a big learning curve too. That was the first time I was on set every single day of the episode, and I learned all about. You know, I had to drive a car in it, and I had to deliver like very long lines, like monologues almost in it. So that was a big learning experience, and it was kind of like about a female Indiana Jones. So it was very like active and a lot of action. It was a lot of fun for me to be very physical. And then I'd say the biggest break that came for me was the theater. I got into the biggest Shakespeare rep company in North America, this company called Stratford. And how did I get in? It's like crazy. So they wanted to make a production of The King and I, which is a musical that is in the forest, right? So they needed like actors who could dance and sing and stuff like that. But when you do theater and rep, you always are in more than one show. You have to do like 3 shows in one season. So that show was going to be crossed with this very lesser known play called Pericles. It's a very rare, like not a very talked about Shakespearean play. So the actors had to be in both, right? So they needed, you know, you have to be able to dance and you have to be able to act. And so all of a sudden, Stratford, which at the time had a very bad reputation for being very white and, you know, really thinking the only people that can do Shakespeare are white people, opened its doors and let a whole bunch of people who were ethnic audition. And the lead female part in Pericles is for this young girl. Now, little did I know the director of it wanted to set the play in the Far East as well. So he wanted like a whole bunch of ethnicities in this show. So I went to an open call audition. What is an open call audition? It means that, you know, you get submitted. If they like your picture and they've kind of done something, they'll let you come, and you have to prepare 3 pieces. A comedic Shakespearean monologue, a dramatic Shakespearean monologue, and a contemporary monologue, okay? 3 pieces. You come and you do it, and then maybe you're going to get a call back, and then you get the material from the play to actually audition with. But first you have to do this like blanket audition, right? And it was the summer, and I was working at a restaurant, and I just finished my first year of university, and I would think I was working at 2 restaurants at the time. I was hustling, and I had an agent, and I was auditioning.
You're so active.
So active. I was very ambitious, always thinking forward. And I was 19. I hadn't even turned 20 yet. And I get this audition, and it was like I had to go to the audition before I was going to my shift at the restaurant. And I didn't learn all the pieces. I only learned 1 comedic and one dramatic and 1 contemporary. I didn't learn the third. I just didn't have the time. So I thought, what do? Do I not go to the audition because people wait their whole lives to audition for this company? Or do I just go? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go because I know 3 and, you know, what do I have to lose? They're going to say no, right? So I get there and they're like, hi, welcome. You know, the head of casting is there and the director of this play, who I've never met before, he's from England, Leon Rubin. And they're like, great, what pieces have you prepared for us? I'm like, well, I've only prepared 2 because I'm studying, I'm in school, and I'm working, and I only have 2. And they were like very shocked that I said that. But I did them, and I had a great time. And I get a phone call. No, at the end of my audition, he's like, I need you to come back tomorrow. I want to work with you again. Because they had like
wow, and they usually don't say that.
No,
they usually never say that.
Because he was only there for a short amount of time because he came in from London, and there was literally 100 people waiting to be seen after me. So they was like, go to work.
Yeah, right.
He was like, what time do you work tomorrow? It was the Sunday. I said, oh, I work at 12 because I work the lunch shift. He's like, great, come and see me at 10 back here. And I was like, oh
amazing.
My God. I go to work, I put my uniform on, I'm like, woo, this is crazy. And he's like, bring the audition you didn't learn, bring the script, I'm going to see you do it. So then I came back, and I was the only person he called back. And he's like, I think I want you to play the lead in my play, but you've never done theater before. You've never done Shakespeare before. I need to see that you can do it. So I want
and at this moment, you studied only for 1 year, correct? Acting
only
wise.
1 year, yeah. Well, I'd done my high school, but I was only 1 year of university. And so he really worked with me and wanted to see what I was capable of. And I guess I impressed him, but it was like a 1.5-hour callback. It was so long. And he said, okay, I think you're the right person for this. Now I have to go to the board of this company that is like super whitewashed and doesn't take risks on anybody and convince them that you're the person I want for this role. He's like, but I will only do this if you agree to one thing. And I'm like, what's he going to say? And he's like, I know you're in school.
Oh.
And he's like, you have to promise me that after you finish your time at Stratford, you'll go back to school and finish your degree. Because I couldn't do both. I had to go go and live there for 9 months of the year, 10 months of the year, right? You go and you live in the town and you rehearse and you do plays and you do, it's like, so you can't do anything else. And I said, okay, I promise. And then months went by. And I think that was in August. And, you know, he kept telling me, you have the part, you have the part. And the offer only came in like February. I signed the contract. And then that was it. I was there for 2.5 years. And my real training came there. Because you do, you do 3 shows a year. You do each show over 90 times to live audiences. Biggest house was 1,800, smallest house was 250. They have 4 different theaters. You work in every different theater. Sometimes you're playing the lead, sometimes you're part of the ensemble, you understudy parts. And it was formidable because it was the best learning experience because I was actually doing it, right? And that is really, it's so funny, but with acting, it's so important to study and practice and hone your craft. But I feel like the biggest leaps are made in working. Constantly, when you constantly work, I feel like that's when you really get a chance to get better and better and better and better and better and better and better. And I had the opportunity every night and every afternoon, matinee and evening performances, to go out. And even though you're doing the same material over and over again, it's the same play. That's the work. You have to find it. You have to make it fresh every time. It has to mean something every time. And the first time I did it, I remember the scene. I come out only in the second act of the play, the first play, and I have to be crying because my father is left, my mother is left, and now my maid starts with her death, and I'm weeping at her grave. That's how the play starts. And in order for me to cry, in the beginning, I had to spend the whole first half of the play in my dressing room with earbuds on and a diary and listening to music and like working myself up to that state because I wanted to go introduction to the whole audience was seeing me this way. So I wanted to be as engrossed in my character as possible. So I would spend like an hour in my dressing room alone and like trying to go to a dark place and thinking of all these things. And then by the halfway point, I could just get ready 5 minutes before. I could be outside having a cigarette talking to someone and then literally be able to drop into that character within 5 minutes and get on stage. And that's what it taught me. It's like being a dancer.
Right. So did you find out how to work it out, your grief, by your own, or you use some technique? Like, for example, Stella Adler, she works from the past. Did you need to remember something from your past, or you worked like Meisner? You were imagining something that's happening to you. How did you find out the way?
I really used to, in the theater, I really used to use the Adler technique of remembering stuff from the past. And I would write it in a journal, and I made like a playlist of music that I would put in my ears that would bring me back to that place. And at first, I had to really work at it. I'd have to write every day, right before the show. I'd have to listen to the music. I had a ritual, And then as time went on, the time I needed to do it got shorter and shorter and shorter to the point where I didn't need the music or the writing. I was able to put my body and my emotions into that state. I was able to find it and access it. And it helped me so much in film and television because to be able to really on command go to a place in a very real way is a skill. It's a skill. It is. And it's a muscle. And you have to, like, when you want to work out, you work out your body, you have to work out that emotional muscle memory. And so that's what the theater really taught me, is how to access things. And then another technique I loved, so I used to do that emotional memory recall, but I also love a technique that a teacher taught me while I was there called imagery, where, you take a line. He would teach us this way because it was Shakespeare. He would say, you take a line of text, you say it, and then he's like, I want you to close your eyes and say the line, and whatever image comes into your head when you're saying it, it could be anything. It doesn't have to even be related to what you're saying. It could be, you could be talking about, how seeing someone's face is like seeing the sunrise first thing in the morning. And when you close your eyes and you think about it, for some reason you think of, the first thing that comes to your mind is, I don't know, a flower or something, or your dog, or your grandma, or that time you were on a roller coaster, whatever that is. He's like, that image is what your subconscious relates to that line, and you need to honor it. And you need to see that in your mind's eye when you're saying it, because if you see it, we'll see it too. We may not see the same image as you, but
Yeah.
we'll see your connection to that text. Another fantastic technique for film, where it's all in the eyes, where it's not like where you don't have your whole body, you know, as a dancer or on stage or a big costume to express it. It's just here. So you need to think it. If you think it, the camera will see it. But you have to really think it, right?
And it has to be really meaningful to you as well.
It has to be real. It just has to be genuine. And that's the thing that I learned then getting into film and television is like how the camera sees you. The camera sees you differently than you see yourself. It does. Sometimes it sees in some people who you think like they're not so great, then you see them on camera and you're like, holy shit. The camera sees their vulnerability, or it sees their strength in a way that you never saw it. And that takes time, I think, to figure out. That takes a lot of like auditioning, watching, seeing yourself on TV, seeing yourself in movies, seeing yourself against other people to know how to really work that, because it's a different skill set.
Did you ever had a situation in audition or actually while you were already on set shooting where something really kicked you out? And if yes, how did you keep up yourself? How did you brought yourself back together? Did you ever had those situations?
Yeah, of course. So
And what was that?
okay, so I did a movie with Denzel Washington. And my whole movie, my whole part in the movie was this 7-page long scene with just him and I. That was my part in the movie. Okay. It's called
wow.
Roman Israel. And when I auditioned for the casting director, Vicky Thomas, very famous casting director in LA. I just put myself on tape. And then months later, I get a phone call from my agent being like, you have a call back with Dan Gilroy, the director. Go to the production studio because they're about to start shooting and have this callback. And I go, and it's just me, and this long scene, and Dan is there, and Vicky's there, the casting director, and Dan's like, yeah, I picked you out of everyone who auditioned for this because I felt like had the right energy for the scene. I play a lawyer, he plays a lawyer. I play the bad guy. I play a defense attorney who basically wants to like convict people and just like, you know, checking a lot lists like, yo, he was charged on a drug offense. Great. He gets 10 years. I don't care that he's 17. I don't care that he comes from a poor family. This is just the law. I'm a very callous woman. And he plays this like public defender who, you know, has a lot of heart and soul and cares about every one of his clients and doesn't just want them to go through the system. Okay. So it's Denzel Washington. So Dan like basically
right.
He's a part in the room. He's like, you got it. He's like, but listen to me. He tells me, he's like, I do not want you to be intimidated by Denzel. He said, you can't. He said, he's a method actor. So when you show up on set, he's going to be completely in costume. He's put on weight for this role. He's let his hair come out. He's taken his veneers off, so his teeth look a little weird. I want you to be prepared for that. He's completely in character. And when he says he's ready to work, we work. He's the star, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. He's like, but I want you to remember something. Your character doesn't give a shit who Denzel Washington is. Your character doesn't give a shit who Roman J. Israel is. You need to do your job. It's work a day. It's not a big deal. Have him say what he has to say and be like, okay, thanks, bye. Like,
those conversations usually makes me nervous when they say you should nervous when you see them. It's like, yeah, you better not say that, otherwise I get.
Of course I'm gonna be nervous. Of course I'm gonna be nervous. Denzel Washington. I mean, I'm freaking out. So I get there. I go to work. You know, my husband was away working. I had to like arrange for someone to look after our son. My son was, I didn't have my second child yet, so I like arranged for someone to. I think I took him to camp that day, and then someone else was picking him up, and whatever. And so I get everything organized, and I go, and I'm in the hair and makeup chair. I still have like my normal clothes on and everything because it's, I'm at my time, and my hair is not even done. I have no makeup on, and the AD comes up and says, "Yeah, Denzel's ready, so come." And I'm like, Okay. And I show up, and there he is, completely in character, in costume, like an hour and a half before our call. Like, we're supposed to be on set shooting at 10:30, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was on set. And so I was like, okay, this is one of those moments where I feel scared and intimidated, and I can see that everyone in the crew is like also very aware of Denzel, Mr. Washington, I should say, and his mood, and it just felt like everyone was kind of walking on
intense.
So normally you're on set, people are like, hey, how's it going? You want a coffee? Blah, blah. This is like different. This is markedly different. So I get there, and they're like, okay, so Denzel likes to rehearse a lot. And I was like, fantastic. And this was amazing for me to see because he did everything in rehearsal. He tried on that scene every which way he could. He did it fast. He did it slow. He did it sitting. He did it standing. He got down on his knees at one point. He changed the lines. He was like, it was amazing because I was seeing this wonderful actor. I got a very small look into his process. And his process is that, yeah, he has an idea of how he wants to do it. But before he pursues that idea, he has to try it 100 different ways. And I think that that's something that I constantly forget about in my own work, particularly now. And I constantly have to remind myself when we're doing like auditions and self-tapes, I have to tell myself, this is all I have to do today is this self-tape. This is my job. I'm an actor. I should be rehearsing it or taping it 5 different ways. I should do it. Okay, now I'm going to do one where she's a woman who just doesn't have time for anything, and we're going to do it this way. Now I should do one where, like, I think it's actually a comedy, and I should do one where it's a tragedy, because the truth is you find things in each of those different ways that will then you can ultimately cherry pick and use in your performance, right? And that's what he was doing. Even though there was no way we were going to play that scene with him on his knees looking at me, he wanted to try it, and it did something different to me too, right?
Yeah, you reacted.
Exactly. And so how did I get myself into it? So there was one point where I couldn't tell really what was real and what wasn't either, because he was like trying stuff, and then everyone has to call him Roman. You have to call him his character's name. Like, you can't call him Mr. Washington. And he was trying something, and he talked to Dan, he talked to the director. And then at one point, because I'm supposed to be so like, whatever in the scene to him, like I don't care about him, he looked at me and he was like, are you even happy to be here? Do you even like your job? He asked me this, right? Normally what I do when I'm nervous is I always go back to the basics when I'm nervous. So if I feel like someone is trying to like intimidate me, or I feel intimidated, or sometimes you don't work with the best people, they're like weird or jealous or pieces of shit, we've all been there. All I do is I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? Before I used to be like, I'm gonna block this out, and I'm gonna but now I've learned, I'm like, you know what, I'm actually gonna use what you're giving me.
Use that.
You're gonna be a dick, I'm gonna use it, but I'm not gonna be a bitch to you because you're a dick. I'm gonna look at you, even if I'm supposed to be in love with you, like, I love you even though you're a dick. Like, I do. I'm going to do that because that's what the work is. That's what the work is. Like, you have to find, it's so psychological as well, right? You have to find your way through all those energies that are on set, the energy coming from the director, the DOP, the crew, your other actor. In an ideal world, it's all one team, one dream, but that's not always the case. So as an artist, you have to see what's in front of you, and you have to use it. If you feel like you're being left out or someone's trying to use it. And I didn't know that was my power. I didn't know I had that power. It took a long time of being on set and sometimes being treated like shit, And I'd go, oh, I feel like shit. And I'd call my boyfriend, who's now my husband, who's been on set over 100 film and television things. And I'd say, I feel like they're doing this to me or they're doing that to me. And he's like, use it. Be your character in that moment. Your character right now is annoyed or jilted or left out. Find a way to put that in the scene, because you will ultimately come out the winner. When we see that, you're going to be doing the most interesting thing in that scene. It's going to be you. But it took a long time to learn that. It really did.
That's right. There's no way out when you're on set and you have to work. I had a situation in my very first movie. I didn't even speak English at that moment. Like I knew my lines, but I wasn't, I couldn't understand many things. And I had this actress. She was playing the opposite, and I was on set watching the playback,
Yeah.
them doing the scene, and she was rehearsing with Wes Bentley, and they were whispering, and I could hear what they were saying, and she was talking about me and my next scene when I'm entering, and we're all having this conversation, three of us, and I remember I was really like, I didn't know what to do. I went back to my trailer, I put some headsets on, like she really even though I did a really good homework and I knew my character really well, but yes, by that effect, like it takes time to really be confident enough to really be
Yeah.
confident. When it's in the very beginning, it's just like, wow, you don't know what to do. She was talking about, oh, she's so green, she was saying
Yeah.
some mean things, and when you know that and you have to act as if you didn't hear that, it's really, really hard. So yes, very interesting to use that, and I did that as well. I used that
Yeah.
because I was the one who was supposed to steal her fiance, and I went in and I was like, I'm gonna. I did a little
Yeah.
thing,
Totally.
played like you're such a bitch, but I'm gonna, kill you. So it
Oh
really
yeah.
worked.
It's like the reason your fiance is leaving you is because you're such a bitch.
Yeah. So it really is. It actually worked. It actually worked. So tell me about your TV series. When you got your first TV series, and how hard it is, and what's the difference between working on the TV shows and the feature films for you?
Okay. So the first TV show I did in Canada was a show called The Border. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The first TV show I did this crazy. It was insane. It was this sketch comedy that we shot traveling in the southern states of the United States of America. It was a pilot, a 6 episode pilot for Fox, and it was all improvised. And that's a complete, like, we could do an entire session just on that show. Anyways, I did that. It was unscripted. It was insane. It was by the creator of Borat and Bruna, Sacha Baron Cohen's writer. So it was like very intense, very funny. We almost got arrested. It was crazy. We did that, but then I came back. And then I booked this after my stint at Stratford. I was in school, like I promised my director I would go back to school, and I booked a TV series called The Border. It was a Canadian TV show, and I played this young Canadian Muslim cop, Layla Hourani, and it was like my first foray into like regular series work. And we
Mm-hmm.
would make 13 episodes a season. I did it for 2 seasons, and um, that was a real watershed moment for me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I had done some television, not a lot. And then I did this whole thing, like 3 years in the theater, which was amazing. And then I booked this pilot, which was like this crazy, unscripted, improvised comedy. And then I came back and I didn't work for a while. I didn't work for like a year almost, really. I didn't book anything. I just kind of like lost, I think because I had so much success so quickly, I didn't I didn't know really what rejection was. I didn't know. I took it very badly and very personally that I went from being a star, really, and like
Mm-hmm.
getting rave reviews and booking every third audition, to not working at all as an
Mm-hmm.
actor. And it really like messed with my mind. And it took me a long time to like find my way back and just be like, you know what? I need to trust my instincts when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
my acting. I was like doing weird things. I'd be overacting, or I would get really nervous,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of just had to work through it. And I faced this again. I think this is something all actors face in their lives, right? Like we all feel like, the job that we have is our last. We don't know when we're going to work again, all that stuff. So I had this, and then I got into this groove that summer of 2006 of just like getting really close to a bunch of auditions and like really going in there and just being very honest in my auditions, being very honest with my work, preparing. And then I booked this show, and I did it, and I thought that I was doing all the right things. And then I watched the show after the first season, and I was like, I hate this. I hate my work. I felt like it was flat and not interesting, and the choices I was making were just not compelling. And so I had met my husband at this time, and he told me to go study with someone. He said, have you really ever taken like on-camera acting lessons? And I was like, well, you know, I did one. This guy was kind of weird. I got a weird vibe from him. He's like, no, go to this guy. His name is David Rotenberg. He still teaches in Toronto. He's taught like, you know, Tatiana Maslany and, you know, what's her name? Oh my God. You know, Rachel, that big famous rom-com actress. She was nominated for an Academy Award for Spotlight. Any big Canadian talent. He's coached them and stuff like that. And he has classes and he does one-on-ones. And he was like, just go and take it. Like, just see, because he has his own technique and his own vocabulary. And he went to Yale.
And also you changed. And also you changed. So it's like you really, really need...
Right? Exactly. I'm growing up.
You needed to learn yourself again. You needed to know your instrument again.
You're so right. Because the whole thing about being an actor is like knowing what makes you unique and special, and knowing how to bring that out, and also knowing how you're perceived, you know? And I didn't realize that I was perceived in a certain way, because I felt a certain way, and then, you know, like I always felt like you, like I always felt like an outsider, because I had success so quickly. I kind of felt like an imposter sometimes, like wasn't really sure what I was doing to deserve all of this. And then part of me felt like I was the shit and the best, you know, but there was like, there were these sides. And I met this acting teacher, and he really taught me. He would like literally put a camera in front of our faces, and he'd be like, think this thought, or do the scene this way. And you then watch it. You watch yourself, and you're like, oh my God, when I do this, I see it. And when I don't do this, sometimes like I think, I'm like, but I thought in the scene that I was really upset. And then I look on camera and it looks like I'm just annoyed. But I was actually really upset. You know, but really, like I had this disconnect, right? I had this like, it was so weird. And then it really took this like navel gazing, we call it, like looking at yourself, studying how the camera sees you, how the camera takes, even now, I'll be doing a scene and Carl will be like, you know, your space looks like you just smelt something bad. Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, we call it disgusted. Like,
yeah. I was like, I didn't smell something bad. I just feel like it's weird. He's like, yeah, but that face you're making doesn't look good on you.
Yes, for example, you feel anger, but you look like something smells bad.
Yeah,
like you,
exactly,
like that.
Exactly. So, you know, I really studied with him on the break between season 1 and season 2, and I came back in season 2, and like unanimously, critics, friends, teachers, colleagues, they were like completely different actress. It was like a completely different actress from season 1 to season 2. But not everyone gets afforded the gift of having a whole season of a show not being very good to then turn it around and be good. And then after season 2, I felt like I found a place. And my husband said, we weren't married yet, but he said he was already living in Los Angeles. And he said, you should totally come to LA. It's a marketplace. You have something that people will want. You should try it. And I thought about it, and I had a very comfortable life in Canada. I was working, respected, you know, making a living, more
successful.
Than a living, you know, successful. And but I grew up traveling all over the world. My dad was constantly pursuing different jobs. That's why he was very ambitious in his career. And he knew that the heights he wanted to reach in his career, he had to leave India to achieve them. And he did. And that's kind of how I was raised. And I thought, like, well, if I really want to do this and I really want to be an actress, will I be able to look at myself in the mirror when I'm 40 or 50 and being like, did I give it my all? Like, did I really, really, really give it my all? Because you have to give it your all, right? You have to give it 100. You have to put yourself at risk. You have to put yourself in weird, uncomfortable situations. And I did it. I was really lucky. I had like a resume and a bunch of money saved and a boyfriend who knew Los Angeles. And, you know, I had like the best way. So I was like, I'm going to go and try. I got a work visa on my own. And it's called an outstanding, an O1, an outstanding abilities visa. I got that for 3 years. And I arrived in LA. Because I had an agent. Oh, how I got my agent in Canada. We want to talk about that. So the first
Yes,
time I got,
but by the way, I just need to, by the way, I just need to, we'll talk about that. I just will remind you that Instagram gives us only 1 hour, so there's a little bit time left, but tell us, yes.
Okay, so after I got that agent that I just mailed out to and she took a chance on me, after my premiere at Stratford, like my big premiere where everyone loved my show, an agent that represented the lead guy of the show came knocking on my dressing room door, and he owns the biggest agency in Canada. The character is named Larry Goldhart. He comes knocking on my door right after the show. I haven't even come out, just after curtain call. And he said, "I'm so sorry. I know I met you earlier. I had no idea who you were. Please let me represent you. I have to represent you." And it took me months. And so after like months went by, I met him, and he has a lot of connections in LA. His daughter, who is now my agent since he retired, took over the company, and she has a ton of connections in LA. So I went down to LA. She set me up with all of these meetings with agents and managers, and I was really lucky. I got to pick who I wanted because I was coming down at a time where I had a resume and I had some experience, and LA, they're always looking for the best thing. So I ended up signing with just a manager at first. He's still my manager today. We've been together for over 13 years.
That's amazing.
And the reason I picked him is not because he was part of the biggest company or had the flashiest name or even represented the best people. I just knew he was he's young, he had a real fire under his ass, and he was hardworking, and he really, really, really believed in me. And he just picked up that phone and 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 picked up that phone for me. And I started auditioning, and he would call casting agents to give you feedback, which never happened in Canada. And they would give feedback to him, and then he would tell me. And at first, it was so hard to hear. That oh, you went in and you weren't so great, or oh, you didn't like. But then I was like, and I would always dread it. And even now, sometimes I'm like, yeah. He's like, when I have feedback, my heart kind of sings because it's criticism.
Well, at least you know what to work on.
Exactly. That's how you have to look at it. And then I booked 24, which was a big show at the time, and I ended up, and that started my career in LA. And I was so lucky because it was 1 year of work, and everyone was watching that show. And all of a sudden, I got an introduction to a huge American market. And then, you just keep plowing at it, right, Sophia? There's no, it's always a hustle. This is the only job where when you have one job, you're still auditioning for other ones. There's so many times I'm in my trailer at lunchtime or in between work, and I'm doing an audition for something else.
And then you got a proposal, which is another story, that your husband is a working actor as well, and you guys are doing great together. You can teach each other, you can shoot each other, and it's such a great team to be together. And you decided to stay there, and since then you stayed in Los Angeles till now, right?
Yeah, we live there. We built our dream home. We got married. We have 2 wonderful children, a dog, a pool.
That's so beautiful. I remember I saw you in London when we were working on the same project with you in the feature film, which never actually ended up to be. But I believe that we don't have time to talk about that. No. Maybe it's a good thing. But we should.
It'll be in part 2.
But yes, I remember I saw you guys all together, and it was so great to see that you can travel together and support each other. That's the main thing, actually. That you could keep it all together, and that's really, really great. So that's now I want to say to the audience, guys, here it is. The success comes from actually activeness. You should really work and believe and do something and never stop. And then when people see you're being active, they will always want to work with you because they will know that this girl, she will complete anything. So that's amazing. We have only 4 minutes left. Nazneen, I have a tradition. Can you please give us 3 advices for somebody who wants to come to LA and try their career there? What would it be to do, or even for somebody who is happy at their places? What would you recommend as a successful, famous actress from Hollywood? What is it, 3 things, the main things to get the success?
So 3 things. So one of them I mentioned earlier is, you need to, so you're only as good as your representation in the town, like your agent and your manager and stuff like that. And I think that you don't need to be with It helps to be with big companies like Gersh and what I'm with, but really you need someone who believes in you and has some connections. If you sign with someone who's passionate about you, like really passionate about you, that's the only way you're going to get anywhere, because you can be the best actor in the world, but if you don't have those opportunities of auditions or meetings, no one's going to know. So go with someone who's passionate about you and listen to your heart when it comes to that. Try to listen to your instincts when it comes to that, because everyone talks the talk, but really like sit down with someone, look them in the eyes and be like, can I build my career with you? That's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, and I have to say to myself too, persistence, persistence, persistence. Like everyone thinks, oh, you did a movie, you get offered this. Yeah, but like I do 20 auditions in between that I don't book, that I put my heart and soul into. Some of them I love. Some of them I'm like, oh God, this would be like the dream role, or oh, I feel so connected to this. And then it doesn't go forward. And luckily another thing will come along that'll give you, but you have to keep moving forward. You have to trust that everything happens for a reason. I really believe that. Every time it's a no, it's because there's a yes for something else. And that has really helped me in my career. It's really helped me be at peace with a lot of rejection, and it's really helped me be open to a lot of new opportunities. So representation, persistence, and trust that what will be will be. But don't stop working. I can't tell you that enough. Acting is like your life. You're always, if you're really an actor, you're looking at every moment, and I can't help but think like, what would I do in a scene like this? Or like, oh my God, I'm going to remember this. Or like when I have to laugh in a scene, I'm going to remember what just happened yesterday, because it's all life. It's all part of us. And you need to keep that in mind. As actors, this is our instrument, and all our experiences are our tools. So go forward with that.
You inspired me so much, and you reminded me of self-presentation, and that we really should do and really should move on. And yes, thank you so much for this interview, for our talk. And I really hope that you will find time to do it again, and to really answer the questions that we're going to get from the people who are going to watch this, with the translation from Russian side and from United States side. We call it a few weeks later. Usually it doesn't come in exact 2 weeks, but yes, please, let's do it again, and let's answer all those questions, because there's so many things I still want to ask you about. So let's do it again. And thank you, Nazneen. Thank you so much for this live.
And congratulations on your studio and your school and all of the things that you're doing and expanding as an artist and a businesswoman. It's incredibly inspiring, and it's a real asset to have someone with your experience and your talent. Share it with people in your country.
Yes, I really want to get this, so people I want to make a studio where people can really work their muscles, and we talked about this in this interview a lot. So it's a great thing to make a space for people to train and try themselves in different ways. Yes, so thank you so much for you and for your interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Ciao. Bye.